All right, what's up, beautiful whalers? You getting the Sonder and Logan show today. Rob is kicking it somewhere out of the country. Can't even keep
He's
up.
gallivanting,
He's,
gallivanting
gal-
across Europe.
he's gallivanting across Europe. We're going to talk about him just in case he's watching from afar. What time do you think it is over there? 9 o'clock? Is he in Austria?
Yeah, he's in Austria, so what? That's probably 9 hour difference. So,
He's definitely up watching us right now.
oh yeah, for sure. He doesn't have anything else. Have you watched his hotel reviews on Instagram? It's
Yeah, it's so
like the
funny.
most like bougie lame thing I've ever watched. Like complaining about the views out the window. I'm like, get outside, get out of your room if you're complaining
Why are you
about
even in
that.
a room?
Yeah,
That's so funny. All right, so we got Kenny and Charles. We got the whole Riot Society team on. Olivia. Yeah, for context, I'm sure if you haven't watched Raba's Instagram, he is follow him for sure. But he's basically vlogging his travels. And last night he bought a bougie hotel room, but there's a soccer team staying in the hotel, so he got bumped. He got bumped to a really big room. I guess he could have had a party in there, Michael Scott style. But he really wanted his balcony view. I couldn't keep up with what happened, but I think that he somehow got switched into the room. Maybe he traded with a soccer player and said, "Hey, you want some space?" I don't know. That'd be kind
it's
of funny.
way better. It's like a full on suite. It has like a sitting room and then a living room and then two bathrooms. Like it's crazy. And he's complaining about the stupid view in the mini bar.
Got to
So
get outside.
go make fun of him on Instagram or Twitter for us.
Got to get out there. Yeah, that's great. So Sandra, we were just talking. I'm coming off of Blue Whale Group, and I'm going to share some notes from that, which I think will be great for everyone. What have you been up to? What's new and exciting in Utah and in your life? What that can help the people?
Yeah,
Seeing
man.
anything fun?
Lots of good stuff. Got back from a 4 day retreat last week. Didn't have much time to talk
With the
about
wife?
it. What was that?
Like a retreat with the wife?
Yeah, that was
Cool.
good.
Good.
Yeah, a little fun journey. Not, I mean, maybe not so fun, but it was good. So, exactly what I needed. So that was good. And then we were just staying up in northern Utah. So my little brother got home from his Mormon mission on Thursday,
Mhm.
so got to see him after 2 years, which was cool.
Oh wow, 2 years.
Yeah, that's wild. It's a wild thing to do, but and then yeah, just working on launching my own brand in the next month or so. So it's been fun getting into, I guess, more the operations of a business and getting all the product and all that fun stuff ready to go and websites. So all the marketing campaigns. So yeah, lots of good stuff happening in my life.
That's super exciting. All right, so I don't know how much you want to share, but I'm curious from the operations side, like, um, did you go through an entire exercise to understand like what your unit economics were? Have you already decided what your target CPA needs to be? Have you decided if it's going to be a subscription model or one off? Like how much work went into like deciding the business model?
Yeah, I think honestly what I wanted to do was create I'm creating a premium energy drink that's made with mushrooms, nootropics, electrolytes, BCAAs, and caffeine. So for me, I didn't really care what the unit economics or the cost were. I just wanted to create the best product possible, and then use whatever that cost came out to be, working with a variety of co-packers to see kind of what the ballpark price would be on it, and then actually going through the flavoring and all that. And then from there, that's kind of then where I set my target. So like, I mean, our price cost is going to be like 10 to 15x more or less what's on the market now, just because the ingredients are premium, and obviously the big players have economies of scale that are insane. So
Yeah.
that also helps. But yeah, and so then from there, we are going a subscription and incentivizing that with a pretty heavy discount versus a one time. So we'll still sell a one time on that front. Um, so yeah, I think that's more kind of just like figured out what our costs were, and then obviously baked in some margin along the way. So as far as like CPA costs and things go, I'm actually approaching this very differently. Um, as far as a business goes, obviously we'll pay attention to CPA, but I'm creating this company more as like viewing it as a content company that just happens to sell the best energy drink in the world. And so I really just want to focus on producing as much content as possible. So we're kind of modeling it after Saturday Night Live or South Park and how they have things set up,
Yep.
and how they come in with like their weekly think tanks, and then just viewing everything else as distribution channels. And so I want it to be very, very content rich and heavy. And then it's like, cool, yeah, we can run Facebook ads to our content if we want to get more views here, but or put it on YouTube. I want to be live streaming every single day, the company and the growth, and just be like 100% transparent and building in public, times 10, type of thing. So I think really that's how I'm approaching it. And it's a little bit longer of a game than just like creating some ads and pushing people and really pushing the product. It's more pushing the brand. I just see brand as like the biggest moat. And so yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Different than I've ever built a brand in the past, but it feels like the most sustainable and the quickest to get to 100 million in the next 3 to 5 years.
Very cool. No, it's a good approach. I actually just I've been following along. I sent you an email from the former co-founder of Chubby's. That he was the CMO, like the marketing guy, and he put a post on LinkedIn yesterday. So go follow this for whoever's watching. Tom Montgomery is a good follow on LinkedIn. And Olivia, yeah, it's a good question. Sonder, should they follow you on Twitter, or like is anything open, or like, how can they figure out when you launch?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, and then that will get the link out, I guess, or get the info out as it's coming out. I guess I could have just put a link to my Twitter. Anyway, that's my handle on Twitter. And then the name of the company is going to be, or it's Buffed Energy. And so you'll see that if you follow me on Twitter, you'll kind of see the journey as we're putting everything out.
Yeah. So go follow for the listeners here, go follow Tom Montgomery on LinkedIn. He just posted something very similar to what Saunder's describing with this content house. And Tom is super into the storytelling cadence that South Park has.
Yeah.
I forgot what it is. Maybe you would know, but there's like you never want to conjoin the story with a but. It's almost, is that right? It's never a but it's always and then.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So like you never want to have like the story of South Park should never be Kenny goes down the street and Kenny bumps into Timmy, but no, it's like and then this and then that, and then it always unfolds. And funny enough, he said the biggest unlock for them at Chubby's was to not go down the path of building out massive content, like as far as like how much it cost them. Like their most viral content was always just kind of like stuff they got together as a team with and did it at the office or did it very scrappy. The one that I'm remembering is when they decided to do Mario Kart down Lombard Street, like the very windy road. And they just like bought like trikes, like those kid trikes. And they bought Halloween costumes to look like the Mario characters. And then just went out there with a couple of cameras and filmed them flying down Lombard Street, which is normally just packed with cars and tourists. I think it got millions and millions of views. So I like your strategy. It's good.
Thanks.
It's fun. All right, so let's get into a couple of things, and we may circle back around to tying it into your brand too. Might be interesting. But first, I think let's talk quickly about the iOS 17, scare of sorts. Have you been hearing a lot about that, Sonder?
I haven't. No, looking at your notes, that was the first I've seen it, so I'm excited to see what you have.
Yeah, so it came up pretty much in the last 7 days. I think Apple announced this. Mainly Apple is just doubling or tripling down at this point on privacy. And then at the Blue Whale group, it was like a big topic of discussion. People were very curious and nervous about what it meant, because essentially what they're saying as a part of their privacy policy is in the future, they're going to start removing tracking parameters from URLs. So the first thing everyone thinks of is, oh man, are my UTMs going to be gone? And first and foremost, I think right now what's worth noting is that it's not launching until September, number one. And number two, it's likely not going to affect your standard UTMs or even triple whale parameters like TW source and ad ID. Those aren't as concerning to Apple right this minute, from what I can tell. What they're very concerned about is all the click IDs that happen across these different services. So Facebook has their own FB CLID, Google has their own G CLID, and they're trying to do their own customer matching on their end. So I think right away what's going to be impacted is likely Facebook CAPI, maybe even Facebook's tracking on their own, depending on how useful Facebook, like the click ID is to their attribution model. And then Google, if you have like auto tracking set up for Google Ads and Google Analytics, that auto tracking is reliant on the click ID. So you could turn that off and just use UTMs if you're using GA, but I would definitely suggest staying with Triple Whale and using us. Because as far as we know, like those parameters that we use shouldn't be impacted. And even if the good part is with a company like ours versus maybe Google Analytics is that we have a team that's staying on top of this. So even if they decide they're going to remove UTMs altogether, we've already got some ideas up our sleeve for how we could still push forward with attribution, even without, the use of UTMs or those parameters. So that's good. And then a couple of caveats right out of the gate. It sounds like this is really only going to impact private browsing. So if you open a link in Safari private, so it's Safari specifically because that's their native browser, and then opening links from email and opening links from SMS, like the Messenger, the Apple Messenger. And again, Facebook Click ID and Google Click ID shouldn't really be present there. And so if UTMs persist, then it shouldn't really be a problem to continue tracking. The one that'll be interesting is Klaviyo. If that Klaviyo Click ID gets removed, they'll have to be relying on UTMs as well, which they could probably figure out. But it might affect things like abandoned cart rate, browse abandonment, flows, things like that, where they're trying to figure out, is that user back on your site? And now can I trigger this browse abandonment flow, which could impact your revenue. But we're going to continue staying on top of it. So make sure you're following like our Twitter and our blogs. The blog is going to stay up to date. We're launching a whole blog post on this with some more detail, likely today or tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But
I wonder why Apple cares like so much about this. It feels like, I mean, people were like so supportive of it initially with iOS 14.5. And then when they started getting like the worst ad recommendations ever on Instagram and Facebook, it kind of just became like a mockery, and like people wanted to like opt back in because it was just like so bad. It's like, it's weird. It feels weird to me. It's more impacting businesses than it feels like users when it comes to any of this. Like it just feels so weird to me why they're so bullish on like impacting advertising, where to me that really isn't like security or privacy.
yeah, it's a good question. I'm trying to read between the lines with it all. Like, I wonder if this is just like the facade to something bigger that impacts their bottom line.
Yeah.
Like their own tracking mechanism, their own, their own advertising platforms. I'm not sure. At this point, I've done enough research to understand like what opportunities exist in their business that if they shut down Facebook's ability or like to advertise and track users, maybe they can do something better. And maybe then through their channels, it's possible. I'm not sure what their objective is there, but
Yeah. I mean, they teased their own ad network a while ago, but then I haven't seen actually anything
come of
about
it.
it. Yeah. So I'm like, it's just so, yeah, man. I don't know. Kind of just like blows my mind a little bit.
We'll see how deep they go down the rabbit hole. I mean, I can understand the click IDs being removed. And if it's only in private browsing anyway, like people are trying to go incognito. So it's like, fine. But I don't have the math on this, but I would imagine that the normal Joe Schmo just has Safari or Chrome like running normally. And they're only going to private browsing if they want to like refresh their cookies or something, or don't want their cookies to persist with whatever session they're doing. Yeah, I don't know. I only use it if there's like something buggy on my phone. I'm like, oh, this website's not acting right. Instead of going to refresh my cookies, I just open incognito, and then normally it works.
Oh.
So, yeah, we'll see. But anyway, we're on top of that. Stay tuned for the blog post, and we've got some time anyway. I don't think it's going to affect Triple Whale right away, but if you're using Cappy Solutions, it might be something to think about. Anyway, I think Triple Whale is probably a good solution for you regardless, and just use that as your kind of like aggregated source of truth so you can compare platform data and whatever click data we have.
Do you think this will create more or less urgency for us creating our own Cappy with Facebook?
Probably less. I mean, Cappy's an interesting beast. Like, we talk directly with their team, and even they are very guarded and gated about what works. Like, for for instance, like I've pulled blog posts from multiple Cappy solutions and asked like, is this true? Is that true? They like will not comment on it. And I think there's also like a lot of misinformation, maybe even internally at Facebook, about how it all works because it's been around for so long. Like, for example, I've seen customers using offline Cappy, and it was meant for tracking store traffic. So people who came into the store, made a purchase, can I attribute that back to online advertising activities? Like, did they see an ad and then come into my store? But then it got used into direct to consumer marketing, where we would upload all of our orders there and see if they would deduplicate them. But according to their own documentations, they don't deduplicate what you send through offline Cappy against what they've already attributed to online purchases. That's what their documentation says.
Weird. That doesn't. Yeah, that was not my understanding. That's
right. And like, it's funny because like they won't even really comment on it. It's like it's in their documentation. They're like, yeah, you know, what's written is written, but I can't get like a straight answer out of them. So I'm nervous that people who are using offline conversions API might be getting, you know, duplicated conversions, and it looks better. It's like inflating their ROAS, but I'll send the article out. I've got it in my notes somewhere.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So iOS 17 covered that. I wanted to go over custom metrics in the Pixel because I don't think we really talked about that. We have a brand new cart analysis tool that I think everybody needs to know about. And then I wanted to go over some notes from Blue Whale Group. But in between, like if anybody has questions, like please drop them in the questions or chat, and we can talk about things that are most, you know, relevant to you guys instead of the agenda, because this is, you know, your webinar. But let me share my screen and I'll show you guys a couple of things that I thought were really cool recently, and hopefully will help you with your tracking. So right now I'm in our Madison Braids account. And if you were to go to the column selector and choose create a custom metric, this is a pretty new thing we just released a few weeks back. But we heard from a lot of customers that maybe they want to change how conversion rate is measured. Like right now we're using visitors divided by purchases divided by visitors, where you might want to use sessions instead. Another one is like we show total purchases and new customer purchases, but you could subtract the two from each other to understand just new versus returning, like in two separate columns. But a couple more advanced versions that I wanted to show you guys. Let me pull up I had this written out. So I was doing abandoned cart rate, which I thought was really cool that you can do now. So abandoned cart rate, show you guys how we set this up. So you want to do an integer, so 1, and then minus. And then what we're going to do is metric pixel purchases, and then divide that by unique add to carts. And then let's close this up. All right, and we'll apply this. And then you can add that to your selection. So this is all going to tie together in just a moment. So this will be fun. So we have abandoned carts, or we have conversion rate. So where's my conversion rate mentioned? There it is. All right. So now if I go over here and I look at my conversion rate and abandoned, oh, oops. Sorry, guys. That's supposed to be a percentage. Ugh. Important to make sure you click percentage. Still came up as $1. No. All right. Well, imagine these are percentages. That's what they're supposed to be. But the important part here is understanding like what percentage of folks who are adding to cart are actually not purchasing. And then one thing that I unlocked, one thing I was doing earlier was thinking about, all right, so if all the people that add to cart end up in my abandoned cart flow, right? The folks who have added but didn't purchase, the next thing you could do is actually forecast your projected revenue based on those add to carts. So if you're looking at like a one, like let's say you're looking at performance today, and you want to know how many people might have added to cart. In this case, it's not very many, but let's say you're scaling and you have hundreds or thousands of add to carts. You can look at abandoned cart rate, and you can create another metric to forecast how many people or what the projected revenue is of people who abandon cart. So let me look at my formula really quickly here, and I will build it for you. All right, so check this out. We're going to build another metric, and we're going to call this forecasted abandoned cart revenue. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take add to carts, unique add to carts, subtract that from the purchases, because there will almost always be more add to carts than purchases, unless they're equal to each other.
Which
means
you know, which probably wouldn't. Yeah, if you're doing that, then you're probably printing money.
You're doing great. And then you have to multiply this by the integer thing is kind of interesting. So you have to multiply this and then add the integers need to be your what I'm doing here is I'm going to create a percentage. So I'm going to divide, I'm going to say your abandoned cart conversion rate is, let's say 15%. So I'm going to do 15 divided by 100 to make 15%. Then I'm going to multiply that by your AOV. What I've done here is I've taken the unique number of carts that were abandoned, right? So I've got all these people who added to cart, subtracting anyone who already purchased. So now we have abandoned carts. Then I'm multiplying that by my abandoned cart flow conversion rate. Maybe it's 7% for you. Maybe it's 20%, whatever it may be. Just do the 7 divided by 100, 20 divided by 100, and then multiply it by your average order value. And then we can add that forecast as a column. And let's put that here. And we've got this great forecast. Now let's see if it'll work in another page. So yeah, today we haven't had many add to carts, but like $18.90 is what's forecasted. But on like a greater scale.
Back data? Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Yeah, totally. Like, but you wouldn't want to look at it too far back. Like I would probably want to look at it in the last like 7 days or so.
So I was gonna say, yeah.
For some reason, it's showing negative. I don't know if I did something wrong there. Should be.
It's because your abandoned cart rate is negative, I think. Or does that?
No, I just don't know how that happened.
Does your integer need to be after the fact -1?
Unique add to carts minus purchases times the percentage times AOV.
Switch. I think switch pixel purchases minus unique add to carts.
Yeah, I just thought unique add to carts should always be greater than purchases, right?
Oh, true. Yeah.
So this should be a bigger number than that, multiplied by 15%, multiplied by AOV. I was trying this on another store earlier, and it was working perfectly. I'm not sure why it's being weird for me now.
Did you bracket times the 15?
I don't know if it requires it, but I will try. Let's do that and see if it makes a difference. See if that changes anything.
Nope.
Still negative for some reason. But try it for your store and then ping us on Twitter and let us know, or ping us in like Slack, wherever you want, and let us know what you think of this. So abandoned cart rate and then forecasted abandoned cart revenue. I want to know like how much this lines up with your revenue that you're seeing from your abandoned cart flows over a period of time to see if maybe this is a valid use case. I don't know. Have you ever done anything like that, Sander? Like to try to like forward think your ROAS for any of your channels?
Yeah, I used to do this actually a lot in platform and Facebook, because it still does tell you. You can look at like your add to cart conversion value versus like your purchase value. And so that was kind of a metric we would always look at. Most companies tend to have like a 10% from abandoned cart to purchase, and then usually like a 50% initiate checkout to purchase. And so those were always like good benchmarks for us to set. And so if we could get that add to cart rate closer to like, 15 or 20%, then obviously we're increasing that revenue by 50%, to 100%. And so that's usually what would fuel kind of our baseline in our add to cart retargeting on Facebook back in the day, is like trying to increase that percentage um, as a whole. And so that's where I would typically look at like these types of situations. But yeah, then I would just take my abandoned cart revenue minus my actual purchase revenue, and that would tell me how much I was leaving on the table. So very similar way to
And
look
then
at it.
what time range would you look over? Like how long did your abandoned cart flow last? Like 5 days, a day, a couple days?
We normally do 7 days typically, is like that felt like the save time frame that made sense. It felt like anything outside of that usually didn't lead to any increase. But yeah, I think normally you have, most of your add to cart saves will probably happen within the first 72 hours. For most companies, if you have like a higher AOV, then your sales cycle, or your, I guess, purchase cycle will probably be 7 days or greater anyway. And so that's probably what I would base it off of. So can't wait for our updated customer journeys, Logan, to better dive
Yeah,
into that.
it's gonna be great. Yeah. So what Sandra's alluding to is soon what you'll be able to do is see, Facebook, ad click, Klaviyo, click on abandoned cart flow, and then, or yeah, abandoned cart flow campaign, and then be able to see the purchase event. So we'll see how many people are going from Facebook to Klaviyo welcome series, then maybe again to Klaviyo abandoned cart flow or something, which would be really cool. And yeah, hopefully launching next week, week after. We're doing some back end work to ensure all the data is aligned. So I apologize for the wait, but I promise that it'll be worth it because essentially, if the data is not right, then we'd all be in trouble. So we're doing some data backfills just in the database to make sure that it's all squared away. But should be good. So anyway, while you're something tactical to take away here. So after you've built your abandoned cart rate, after you've built your forecasted abandoned cart revenue, I would suggest probably looking at like a 2 to 3 day window in your date range, because anything longer, you're starting to forecast revenue that was already made. Because as Sandra said, you're probably going to convert people within that 72-hour period of being on the site. So I'd probably look at like performance of yesterday and today, or the last 3 days, to see what could be forecasted. That sound about right?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's exactly what I would do. So yeah, cool metric.
All right, so yeah, go make some custom metrics in the Pixel and let us know what you're making so we can share it with the community. That'd be great. And I'm going to throw over like a whiteboard because I'm going to show, or I want to throw out some things that came up from the, oh, you can't see it right now. Let me stop my share and reshare.
Well, you're pulling that up. Another cool one that, and I know you threw this in there, but that I've been using a lot is we show you your new customer purchases. So what you can do is now create existing customer purchases. And
Yeah.
so just take your overall purchases minus your new customer purchases, and that will get you your existing. We do have our new customer purchase percentage in there as a default column now that you can add. That shows you what percentage of your customers are new customer purchases, and so you can also do a percentage difference that way as well. So you could either divide that that new number, or you could just go 100% minus new customer purchase, and that would get your existing customer purchase. So those are two that I really like looking at within the Pixel. Super helpful, honestly. I like it most looking at like Google ads, since it's primarily click data in Google. We're not dealing with as much view through, and so I think that's a cool way to look at like a first click model in your Google ads, looking at all those columns.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy at the Blue Whale Group, and they were scaling up Facebook pretty heavily, to the point where they were making like 7 figures a month in revenue.
Wow.
And at that point, they were trying to go into like basically pass the buck of Facebook and Google to an agency. And one of the things they brought up was that the agency wanted to kind of change the way that they were buying media into the way that the agency wanted to buy media. So like, listen, fine, like you go for it. And then what they came about was like they would meet with the agency, and the agency would be like, listen, like Facebook's doing really well. We're running Advantage Plus, yada yada. And then in Triple Whale, they were like, wait a second, it looks good, but like it looks like we're not acquiring new customers here. Like I can see in Triple Whale, the total purchases is something like 100, and it's only showing that 25 of these are new. So like you're inflating this a bit with these returning customers that Facebook's targeting or Google's targeting. And so that was like the big unlock for them, was just measuring total purchases and returning customers and new customers to try and ensure that, you know, whatever you're spending money on is bringing in all the new customers you can.
Yeah, love that.
All right, let me see if I can share. Let me do a full window. Notes. It's trying. Can't see my screen yet.
Can't see it yet.
Got like a loading screen on my side. All right, hold on. Let me try
Come
it
on,
again.
Lightstorm.
Yeah, come on. Entire screen, screen 2. What is going on here? All right, I'm going to refresh my page. Hold on.
Kill some time. If you guys have any just general questions about the platform or things like that, feel free to throw them in the question box while Logan gets the whiteboard pulled up so we can talk about the Blue Whale Group. And just as Logan's figuring out the technical difficulties, the Blue Whale Group are any Triple Whale customers that are doing more than 10 million in annual revenue. Did they increase it to that, Logan?
No, I think everybody that we were at like 5+,
5.
but most of the people were doing above. We're doing above that.
Cool. Yeah. So if you're doing above 5 million in annual revenue, once a year, might be twice a year, we get together with our Blue Whale Group, where it's very, very like tactical and just open, and you know, different people sharing what's working for them. So we have presentations kind of across the board, but we try to make it very focused on actual brands speaking. So we don't let any agencies or others go in that regard, unless, you know, maybe they own their own brand and they're seeing some good wins that way. But it's very much like tactical in the weeds. So it's a very, very cool event. So if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to Kevin and Narwhal Nation in the Slack group, and he can get you more info.
Yeah, which is what I want to cover. So I guess I'm going to have to use the chat here just to help the discussion along, because I just wanted to pull up like a white screen so I could just talk about some of these things that came up in the Blue Whale Group that I thought were good for everyone to learn about. But of course, Livestorm is giving me an error every time I try to share my screen. So I'm going to run through my notes, and then I'll throw some things in the chat so you guys can kind of follow along and take it away. All right. So yeah, as Sandra mentioned, these are folks who, like, their business is doing really well. I would say they've unlocked at least one channel like Facebook and are scaling pretty well. Like most of them were knocking on or have already surpassed the 7 figures a month in revenue. And at this point, the general census of the group was like, we're trying to get operationally more efficient. There was a cool presentation about how one brand had brought all fulfillment in-house, I would say, and like they were saving thousands of dollars by doing it. And I would say that the cool unlock there was that really they had smaller SKU, like these smaller items. And so they were able to almost have their entire inventory in like a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot space. And they bought the space in like a rural community. So they were able to save on like the space. They're actually going to buy a building, so they own an asset and then lease it back to the business. So there's just some cool like financial tactics there alongside of that, but it can't work for everyone. Like if you have big bulky items or a massive SKU catalog, it could get really dicey for you. But just those are the kind of conversations they're having. And most of them, when it comes to like tactical marketing, it seems like they've all kind of figured out their plan for Facebook, and they're testing on places like YouTube and TikTok and Pinterest. And for Facebook, it sounded like a lot of their time was definitely spent on creative testing. And what I took away, I'll put it here in the chat, just the highlights here. So creative testing. And what they were really, what they're really concerned about was, hey, if we do all these different video tactics, we want to focus on one, our hook. So it might be the exact same video with a different hook in the first 3 seconds or 5 seconds. Two was like the thumb stop ratio. And this was talking about like, hey, what hooks are winning and how do we know what hooks are winning? And then a really interesting unlock was that upper funnel metrics did not always equate to conversion performance. And the cool part here was that people were like, listen, we want to talk about thumb stop ratio. We want to look at 3-second views. We want to look at click-through rate, CPMs. Are they going up or down for video or for statics? But almost everyone in the room agreed that even when CPMs were up, or even if thumb stop ratio looked really good, it wasn't always equaling conversions looking just as good. And so it seemed like everybody was still focused on like, what are my 1-day click conversions from Triple Whale? And how does that relate to the performance of the store overall? And if a single ad was doing well against their baseline, on average, if this ad is 2x the other ad on a 1-day click basis, that minute was winning. But they would look at upper funnel metrics to determine like, what hook is it that we should use? What's the style of the imagery that's capturing the attention of the audience? And that's when they would double down on those strategies. So I'm sure we've probably nailed this, nailed this down a million times, but it seems like focusing on the creative elements and the funnels that you're pushing people down is probably one of the most important things that I took away. And a lot of them who are still actually pretty successful brands, weren't even messing with landing pages. Like we had multiple people say like they've tested all these landing pages, they've done the data, they've yada, yada, yada. But like for them, what really worked was collections and product pages. So I think if you're maybe in the $1 to $4 million range and you're trying to figure out how to unlock the next stage, I would continue focusing on the psychology of your products, how you want to position it to the market, and then what's the unique way that you can do that through ads. And always be paying attention to like, our videos working, our statics working, because even these folks were all saying that video has been doing great for the last 3 months, but they're starting to see it fade a little bit. And where their static images are starting to pop off again. I'm not sure. I imagine that's Facebook's preference, but just paying attention to it can really change the trajectory of your creative output. And then I think there's also like been some A/B testing on whether or not they send traffic to the landing page or the PDP or a collection. And I think that everyone should be testing that just to understand what performs better. Do customers need some sort of landing page that describes how the product works, or is it self-explanatory? So those are 2 big unlocks. And then the offer was also a big unlock. And it's not so much just like, oh, I'm going to offer this 20% discount, but I'll give you one example that is not like giving away trade secrets, because I think you can just go to their site and look at it. But the folks over at Hostage Tape, just go to their website. Within 5 seconds, you'll get this pop-up. So here were 2 big takeaways from the Blue Whale Group about pop-ups. One, this pop-up of his worked extremely well, does work extremely well. And I think, now maybe I can bring this up if I can get the gosh darn stuff to work.
I can share my screen if you want, Logan.
Yeah. See if you can share it. Go to Hostage Tape's website so we can show the people this, and I'll describe some things that worked really well.
I've got it up. Let me just, share screen.
Yeah, that. So here are a couple things that went really well. One, claim your free tape. Not 20% off, not buy one, get one free. It was like claim your free tape. And then additionally, the graphic at the bottom that's like 1 + 1 = 3, he said has been working really well, because it's kind of like, that doesn't make sense. And then it like makes people stay on it a little longer to figure out what they're talking about. But essentially what it is just buy 2, get 1 free. but instead of stating that like exactly in layman's terms, he's using two pieces of psychology here. It's like free is in all caps, claim your free tape, 1+1 = 3, which makes you think, wait a second, what are they saying again? And it's like, oh, I get it. I can buy 2 of these, plus I get an extra pack, which also drives up the AOV. So this does really well. And honestly, he was saying that he's driving traffic directly to this with the pop-up automatically showing for people. I think he like built a page where it's just this pop-up, right? And so think about taking what's in your pop-up and driving people to a landing page that just has that offer already built in. Capture the email address right away. Oh, the app you built the pop-up with. Yeah, this is just going through gosh, what is it? Sandra, maybe if you do like an inspect element on that.
That's what I was trying to.
Sorry, he told me it's a basic one. Like as soon as we find out. Maybe it was just Uno. Or maybe it was through. I know that you can do this through just Uno. You might even be able to do it through Klaviyo's pop-up or Attentive or PostScript if you're using any of those. I just can't remember.
It looks like Klaviyo.
Yeah, I think it is Klaviyo. So yeah, I think you can build this directly in Klaviyo. And so just do that. Just build it through Klaviyo and test it. And so this was working really well for him. And then there was a huge debate in the room. And we even had a rep from Just Uno there. And they had done a bunch of testing on how fast you should actually show a pop-up. And there's two things that came out of this. One, they said that 8 seconds somehow became like like the best out of all the testing that was done. So not 2 seconds, not 5 seconds, but 8. Maybe test for your own brand, like see if you like hold out the pop-up for 5 versus 10 versus 15. But the second piece that actually was really, I thought was really interesting is that make it easy for your customers to find the offer after they've exited the pop-up. So what they, if you actually exit out of this, Sonder, you'll see what happens next. You may want to change this CSS on your end, but you see how there's a gift thing down there, making it easy for the customer to like go back and browse the site, because everyone knows as a consumer, you go to these sites and you get a pop-up and you're like, I get it, but I haven't even like really seen what you do yet. Like I saw an ad and I'm here and now what? And some people just want to go browse first before they give you their email address. But then if they are actually interested and your website does help them convert, I think, I don't have the math on it, but I think that if you tested it, it would help your conversion rate by allowing them to get the offer that they originally saw when they're ready to purchase, if it's still in the same session. Yeah. So anyway, try that out. Make sure you have like something on your site that allows that offer to pop back up and see if it helps with your overall conversion rate. Because it seemed to help with them, which was neat. Another thing that I really hadn't thought about much, I think I might have done it by accident in the past, but I certainly didn't measure it, was, and Sandra, you can maybe pull these guys up too. This is the watch company, Original Grain. Pull up Original Grain and we'll see if we can find an example of this. So they did something called price anchoring, which was fairly new to me, but kind of interesting. So multiple companies in the room were doing this, and there's two methodologies that they were going through. One, if you have a product on your site that does well and is beautiful to look at, but is actually really expensive, put that next to the products that sell really well and are in your medium tier price range. So you see how that's like $749 and it looks beautiful, but there's also a couple of watches next to it that, and they would do this on collection pages too. So I'm not sure if we could find a collection page with this, but apparently the psychology is that the customer will see the beautiful watch that's really expensive, and some will convert on it because they know that like they can afford it and they'll grab it. But others will be like, wow, that's way too expensive for me. But they'll see another item on your site that looks just close enough. It's like, well, it doesn't have like that specific gold inlay, but it has a fake gold around it and it looks pretty similar. Oh, and it's $500 less. I'll take that. So a less extreme version of this. Yeah. So this is like the TRD collection they did with Toyota, which is pretty awesome. But I think what they were doing was they would put that TRD collection on and maybe this is only through their ads, but they would show the TRD collection and then they would show their regular watches next to it. So the TRD collection was like way more expensive, clearly because they're doing a collab. And then you could buy a similar watch that wasn't through Toyota for much, much less. And something like, let's say you're not selling watches that have like this massive disparity in price. The other example was bundling your products or creating this offer that makes people want just the regular version. So the example was the customer was going to offer their product for an entire year's worth of supply. So like Sonder, for example, could take his energy drink powder and say, have a box, like one product that is like 1 year's worth of energy drinks, right? In a box. Maybe that costs like $300. Some people are going to look at that and say, I don't even know what it tastes like yet, dude. Like, no way I'm buying it for 300. But right next to it is the first month subscription at 20 bucks. Like, okay, I'll get that. But Sonder knows he has great margin on both, right? So he'll take the $20 that likely becomes a subscription order and take the recurring revenue at the great margin. And apparently this helps with conversion rate. So I haven't tested it myself, but this was a lot of buzz going around the room. So I would try it out if you have something you can do that with. Like I know that the guys from Riot Society are here, like either with a collab product you have, like a hoodie or something, like show that hoodie for 120 and then show like some of your other hoodies that aren't with a collab and see it at a lower price point and see if it just helps the overall conversion rate of the funnel or the landing page. I'd be curious to know like what the outcome is. The other big piece I heard is increase your prices. I know that Original Grain said they increased their prices by like 20% and had very little effect on conversion rate. So if you need to ink out more margin because CPAs are growing, maybe try increasing your prices a little bit and see what happens and see if you become contribution margin positive on the first order. So that was a big takeaway. Yeah, going through. Yeah, I think. Yeah, mainly those are the things that I wanted to talk about. The other one that was kind of similar on optimizing operations was that pay attention to your shipping per unit and per order and by category. I want to find a way for us to bring this into Triple Whale. Our biggest barrier is really all the integrations that are needed for your. Let me move you guys over to this other screen too, so I'm staring at you. One of the biggest barriers to doing that in Triple Whale is that we just don't have access to all of your 3PLs and some of the dynamic shipping costs. But if you are using a 3PL like Ship Hero, you should be able to get a download, like a spreadsheet that shows you your cost of delivery per order. And I think it'd be really important. Like this one customer realized in the room, he didn't know that he was overspending on shipping, but he was using ShipBob. And everybody was like, wait, you're spending how much to ship that product? And I mean, unanimously, everyone was like, dude, you're overpaying by easily $3 an order. And he like did the math quickly and was like, wow, that's 40 grand a month. If I could really reduce it by $3 an order, that's $40,000 in my pocket. If I can optimize that. So I think like being relentless about some of your operations and where you can ink out extra margin could be really important to the success of your store as well. And if you're selling, like we used to sell at Section 119, they still do like these robes. We had to be very, very careful about the unit economics of like driving ads to those robes because we have the same margin across every product, but that product actually cost almost 2.5x to ship just because of its size and the box had to go in. So if you're doing anything like that, just, kind of pay attention and see where you should be optimizing paid traffic versus some of your retention traffic through Klaviyo and SMS. Maybe the product that costs you 2.5x to ship isn't the one you should be pushing ads through. Maybe it's better for the follow-up order. Just food for thought.
Kenny has a question here, Logan.
Yeah. Is there a way to have the summary page not have tax and shipping in the overall total? And I imagine he means total sales. So yes, you can. You can do a custom metric on the summary page where you can do total sales minus tax minus shipping. But note that shipping is based on what you've inputted as shipping per order. So go to your expenses and make sure you've put a static figure in. I know that's not the most perfect thing to do, But right now it's just like too difficult to bring in the dynamic shipping costs for all the different 3PLs that folks use. So do that, and then you can build a custom metric that's more. I think that's like gross sales. Actually, it's like sticker costs minus discounts minus tax minus shipping. But also think about using shipping as a revenue driver as well if you can. Everyone in here probably has a threshold, $50, $75, $100 for free shipping. But try to figure out like how many customers are actually paying for shipping, and does that help offset the free shipping you've given away? Let's see. Yeah, so that was Kenny's question. Good question. Yeah, so we're coming up on time. I'm not like Raba. I like to end on time and give you time back. It's the value add to this webinar. I'm going to give you time back, or we can ask more questions. So, Sandra, I'm going to pull up your note because you had something here that.
Oh yeah, that was a question that someone asked. We will be recording a new Triple Well University. I'm pretty excited about it. What we're going to be doing is just creating some little like short snippets, just like overall summary. But then what we're going to do is go very deep by 3 different personas. So we're going to do it by growth marketer, life cycle marketer, and business owner / operator, and going through each of those personas section by section and how to use Triple Well. So how to set up your summary page by each of those personas, what to look at in the pixel section. You know, if I'm a growth marketer, performance marketer, what do I look at? And so we'll cover those attribution models in more detail. I forgot who submitted that question, but as just a quick run through, what I like to do, and maybe I don't have access to any accounts right now.
The question was basically, what attribution model or how should I set up my settings in the pixel if I'm advertising on multiple channels, right? That's the one you're getting at.
Yeah. I just don't have an account to actually like live share right now.
Yeah.
So what I would do anytime I look at Google ads, I like to look at a first click. The reason I like looking at it in Google, similar to what we talked about earlier, is because we don't have to deal with a lot of view through conversions. Most of Google is going to be clicks. And so we can really track. And that's usually why Triple Well shows much better performance than Google does, just because our pixel technology is better. So Google ads, I always like to use a first click. I never like to optimize anything brand search based on any performance data. To me, that's solely based on what my competitors are doing and impression share. When I look at Facebook ads, I like to look at a few different attribution models. So if I'm looking at my pixel all and I have a post-purchase survey set up, I like to look at total impact to just see what kind of shift that our machine learning model is making there. And then when I'm actually looking to optimize within Facebook, since the default for most stores are 7-day click, 1-day view, there tends to be a good amount of view through conversions. So I'd say the average view through conversions I'm seeing now is around like 60% as far as like percent of revenue coming through view. So if I'm making some optimizations, then within Facebook, I like to look at triple attribution plus views to really make my optimizations in campaign that way. If I'm, let's say my default attribution is 1-day click, then that's where I actually like to look at that first click model, because that's where we tend to eliminate a lot of view through conversions at that point. Most companies don't do that, but that feels, if you are doing a 1-day click, then that first click tends to be the best. So that, since Facebook and Google are the main channels, I'll kind of stick to those two. But what would you add, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, I sat down with some people at the Blue Whale group and kind of talked about attribution, and most of them were getting to the level where they're trying to test YouTube and TikTok and other channels. Like I said, like they've been able to scale Facebook upwards of 30 to 60K a day. So for all of you out there, like trying to figure out like if you can, it sounds like you can. Just got to make sure you have product market fit, and you're doing the right creative testing. I think you can get up there and scale it. Not to say you have to run your business that way either. Like you can totally run an efficient business model, hanging out around 1 to 5 to 10 million. You don't need to be $100 million brand. But the folks who are trying to scale, they're trying to ink out the next channel. And everyone was pretty excited about total impact once I was able to describe the inputs of it. And to give you an example of how it was described by a customer, and then and I can describe how it works here, is they were looking at click-based attribution in the pixel for TikTok as an example. And let's just use an example. Let's say it was 0.85 in the pixel. The next thing they would do is look at order overlap. How many people who clicked on TikTok were clicking on other channels? And you can do that through triple attribution. Have that on first, and then take a look at the overlap between channels. Then they were going to the post-purchase survey page, and they were actually looking at those results. Now, hopefully everybody stays with me here, but this was the math they were doing. My post-purchase survey has a 35% opt-in rate, meaning 35% of the customers chose an answer. Of that 35%, 19% was actually TikTok. And if you go to the post-purchase survey page, you'll see the amount of revenue associated with those customers who claimed that channel. So what they were doing is they were taking that amount of revenue and dividing it by the 35%. What that does is it takes normalizes the value to the total amount of revenue to your store. So if it was $20,000, then you would divide it by the 35%, and maybe TikTok actually is more like 55K to your total bottom line to your business. But what I described is that total impact does that for you. So instead of having to do the math on your own, use total impact there, which will blend the click-based attribution with the survey data to actually give you a truer sense of how much revenue TikTok is truly driving to your store. And so when the biggest question that came back was, oh, but I did that math and it looks like TikTok should really be 65K, but you're showing me TikTok's 45. And I think the big unlock there was, hey, that's because you may not be accounting for the other touch points those customers had. And when I mentioned that, I was like, oh, wow, I do get it. Like that one customer for $100, maybe their $100 doesn't totally belong to TikTok. Maybe some of it belongs to Facebook. Maybe I also want to give a little bit of credit to Klaviyo, right? Because they went through a Klaviyo flow. So those are the kind of inputs and the mental math we went through to uncover that model. But I think if you're on multiple channels, that model should help you understand how well any given channel is doing. And we do extrapolate it down to the ad level. So, and I know Sandra's got a piece out. So yeah. But there's use linear all as well. That will split the revenue equally. That's the baseline for total impact. And I think there are instances where first click, last click, and even I would use triple attribution when you're looking at a per channel basis. And that's going to show you total revenue that clicked on that channel. So the amount of, total customer revenue from clicks that happened in that channel like Facebook. So yeah, we're coming up on time here. Kenny, I know you have a question about the cart stuff. True Classics might be custom. They're a really big store and have a really big team. I was using something it's literally called the Upsell app. Like just look in Shopify's app ecosystem. I think it was just called Cart Upsells. I really liked that. There was some customization you can do if you have if you have some developers. And then Zipify, I think, is also really popular with our customers. The Zipify third-party upsells. I think they do something in Cart as well. Olivia says Luke's will also do it. So I think it just depends on how customized you want it. True Classic might be a tough one to look at. Same with Chubby's, right? Like if you look at these really big brands, they're normally customizing in-house. So go in Narwhal Nation too and ask what other people are using, and it should help a lot with finding something that is trusted within the community and will be low code for you to worry about. So anyway, I know we're going a little over time. Thanks so much for everybody being here. It means a lot to us. And if you ever have questions and feedback about the product, please reach out. We want to make sure that this product is answering your questions and growing alongside the community, not just tangentially or something. So thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy scaling, and I will catch you next week. Take care.